damn it, an entire generation pumping gas, waiting tables, slaves with white collars. Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need. We're the middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no great war. Our great war is a spiritual war. Our Great Depression is our lives. We've all been raised on television to believe that one day we'd all be millionaires and movie gods and rock stars, but we won't. We're slowly learning that fact. I'm very, very pissed off.
Welcome to Market Makers, everybody. Tomorrow's TA today. Often imitated, never replicated. This is no place for snowflakes. This market is going to chop you up and down. 80% of retail traders lose money trading these markets. 84% of professional traders, professional money managers cannot beat the S&P over a 10-year period. What we have happening right now is huge this week. You want to watch this transmission. NVIDIA is reporting this week. Why does that matter? You may say to yourself, but Brendan, I only trade Bitcoin. What do I give a shit about NVIDIA reporting? Understand, NVIDIA is now the third largest company in the world. It's a major AI bubble. NVIDIA is responsible for 33%. One company is responsible for 33% of the gains in the NASDAQ for 2024. You're talking about an index that has Tesla, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple in it, and one company is responsible for 33% of the gains. Now, what is the options market pricing in? The options market is pricing in for Wednesday's NVIDIA earnings after the bell an 11% move on a company with a market cap of $1.7, $1.8 trillion. This is a huge move. If NVIDIA falls, if NVIDIA doesn't exceed expectations or the market doesn't like what NVIDIA reports, you're going to potentially see a cascading effect dragging down the NASDAQ, dragging down the S&P. And what will that do for crypto? It will drag down Bitcoin and the alts as well. We are in that seasonal pivot time here in the marketplace where we know from our fractal pattern, we know from previous cycles, the last 4 years included, we traditionally start to break down and sell off mid to late February, correcting into March. That movement is an 8 to 10% movement, bringing the S&P down to 4,600 in our charts. That will bring Bitcoin potentially down to the low to mid 30s. Now, what's the flip side of that? Well, behold and rejoice, because I don't think the market's done. Even though we are late cycle in the marketplace means you have very narrow breadth. Remember, we had the Mag 7 driving up the marketplace. These are market cap weighted indices. Mag 7 drove it up, and now we're down to the Fab 4 or the trifecta, which is Amazon, Meta, and NVIDIA. Those are the only ones remaining holding it up. When the market corrects and we rebound, that buy the dip, all the professional money managers, the sales reps will come out on TV. The YouTubers with Bitcoin and cryptos will all tell you to buy, and I think we get a massive bounce. Bitcoin will push back up above 60K. The S&P we have on the charts going to 5,300, 5,400. We're going to look at all these trades today. I added the Solana and Ethereum as well to today's charts. I want to go over all of this with you guys. This is such a key week. I cannot understate it because Wednesday is going to be a huge catalyst in the market. You're going to see it in the charts. But I want everybody that watches this, wake up and see what's happening in the world around you. Everybody has their own biases. That's totally fine. But understand where you are in the market cycle. This channel deals with market history and patterns in the marketplace. We know about the recessionary indicators. I'm not going to beat you up with that again. We know about the leading economic indicators, zero false signals telling you you're getting a recession. We know about the 3-month, 10-year yield curve inversion, zero false signals telling you you're getting a recession. recession, but look at the various countries around the world. We have a huge European audience as well. Germany is officially in a recession. Japan just officially entered a recession. The UK is officially in a recession. China, I don't know what the hell you call that. That's a recession or a depression. China's stock indices are down at the great financial crisis levels right now. China doesn't report accurately its numbers, but you can see it in the charts. So what you have to ask yourself is the US truly going to decouple from the other top 7 economies in the world, or are we just on a lag? That's what we are on, is a lag. You will not have Germany, UK, Japan, China all in recessions, and the US is just going to skate by. Remember, time is more important than price. The people that understand this, you're going to profit in this market. You're going to profit in these conditions. You will not be a snowflake. If you don't understand this, or you just want to hodl, you're going to get your face ripped off. And I just want to share that with you because I was trading in the dot-com crisis, and everybody had the same predictions back then when I was trading energy. Back then, no recession. The Fed, no recession. Wall Street, no recession. The administration in power, no recession. We had a mild recession and the NASDAQ fell 84%. We had the S&P pull down traditionally its 50% target. And what happened in the GFC? The Fed, no recession. Wall Street, no recession. The administration in power, no recession. And we had the great financial crisis. It's the exact same setup we have today with the same indicators telling you you're getting a recession. But until that reality sets in, the market is in delusion, okay? The market is going to be bought back up. I believe that because the sales reps are so strong in this space, so much FOMO's in this space, so many people are chasing performance. You're going to see everything push back up once we get this seasonal pivot, this seasonal decline in the marketplace, because so many of the big bulls like Tom Lee are expecting this. So this goes right along with what they think is going to happen. What Tom Lee doesn't understand and didn't understand in 2022, he doesn't understand the economy is a paper tiger. And people who have a bias, people who have a money bias to always be long, 92% of Tom Lee's clients are long only. You have no reason to ever advise them to go to cash or ever advise them to sell, okay? Understand this is what's happening around the globe. It's happening in the US. Everything takes time to develop. But without further ado, we need to go look at the charts. Lee, let's start the show. All right, guys, as always, this transmission is brought to you by our two fantastic sponsors, SimpleFX and BingX. You know, Lee gets message every single week, which exchange to use, and it depends is the answer. SimpleFX is available to most countries around the world. They have a KYC process, but if you're in one of those countries where you can trade on Simple, fantastic exchange. With our link, you get up to a $5,000 instant first-time deposit bonus. No games, no rollovers, available to trade with instantly. And BingX, if you want an anonymous exchange where you can also trade equities and other assets as well as the cryptos, then check out BingX. That link is in the video description. I'll pin them both in the YouTube comments as well. Guys, let's go ahead and jump into the TA. So looking at the ES, this is the E-mini, okay? S&P, we have our fractal pattern playing out. Our 20% moves. You guys tired of me showing this yet? 20% up moves, 10% declines. 20% up moves, 10% declines. Here's our 23 almost percent up move, looking for our 10% seasonal decline. But first, we have to get through NVIDIA earnings. Let's look at this on a 5-day chart. Let's talk about what do we know and what do we don't know? And do we know what we don't know? Little Donald Rumsfeld quote for all of you old heads like me out there. So let's look at this. Why am I so positive about where the S&P is going? Well, you can see the green line here is right at 46.21. And if we look at this again, we're expecting, based on our fractal pattern, based on the last 4 years in the marketplace, based on this traditional seasonal pivot of a sell-off mid-February breaking down into early March, 8 to 10%, nearly 9% here takes you to 4,600. Okay. So at 9%, you're at 4,600. From a TA perspective, this brings you back to the previous high here in March of 2022. This brings you back to your previous high of July. This is also in line with what you traditionally get, especially in the current wave pattern. So this is what we're looking for the S&P to do. Break down the 4,600. And again, that rebound is going to take you into the 5,300s, possibly 5,400. We can get a better projection once we have candles that actually form a base, okay? But that's the projection based off fibs. So that's the drawdown we're looking for here on the S&P is down to 4,600. This is a 5-day chart. Let's look at a couple of things and we'll zoom in on this. 5-day chart, you're maxed out on the MFI. You're way overbought. Momentum looks good. It's starting to roll over on the 5-day chart. The key is start putting this in current time frame. Look at the 1-day. We go to the 1-day chart. We're going to look at some movements here of price. Now, futures are open today. It's President's Day here in the USA. Regular market's not trading. But when you look at this, look at the divergence you have in momentum on the daily, right? Lower momentum the whole way down as price continues to rise. You look at the MFI, you have divergence as well, bearish divergence on the MFI. So we know the market is slowing. We know the market's cooling off, but we also know the market could easily spike if you get the largest active mover in the indices to pump up, right? If Nvidia comes out with blockbuster numbers, they could easily spike the football. Market spikes up higher. Nvidia could come out with earnings that meet expectations, guys, but because it had such a strong run, we're going to look at the chart. Because it had such a strong run, may not be good enough and instantly sells off. So let's look at this. That's the daily. Let's bring this down to, let's look at the 5-hour chart. 5-hour chart. Where could we talk about going to if Nvidia just rocks it, right? They rock it, FOMO ensues. Let's see where we could get to here. A couple different ways we can do this. We can look at this fib projection here on a 5-hour chart. I'd be looking at 5,100. If you can take your local high out at 50.67, I would be looking at 5,100, completing this W pattern that you have that's forming right here with an upward move, right? 5,100 to 5,150 would be your two target zones depending on the market's reaction to what Nvidia says. Obviously, if it starts breaking down, you already have your high at 50.67. So this could easily just be some type of double top action that forms, resistance up at that 50.50, 50.67 range, and you start breaking down. So those are the two areas that I really want to watch here, all depending what Nvidia does, of course. And if you look at this from this perspective of the fractal, 49.36, this is where you're going to see further declines once you break this level, okay? 49.36. Why? Because you have a couple of patterns that formed here. You have a massive 3-wave pattern that's forming, right? Even if you get another little baby top, double top here, if this starts breaking down, it's going to rebound, bounce around. Once you break 49.36, you're on a glide path down to 48.60, taking you back to these fractal lows, taking you closer to these highs here in this range. But ultimately, that would be the beginning of your decline going down to 4,600. So that's how key this is to watch what Nvidia does. Are we pumping up to 50.67, revisiting the high, going to 5,100, maybe 5,150? We don't know the market reaction. All we know is probabilities. Or are we breaking down in the current 3-wave pattern, which is nothing more than a double top, guys? You can see it on the daily as well. You have a double top that formed. And if you look at this fib resistance from a different angle here, just pulling it from your fractal high down to your fractal low, the 786 on the daily is 50.38. You see that? 50.38, 50.66 is your local high. And then there's those numbers above you, 5,100 and 5,150. It's all going to depend what happens here in just a couple of days, all right? So be ready for that. It's going to be fun to trade. What do I personally think is going to happen, by the way? I know somebody's going to ask me, so I'll just say it. I think the market priced in the majority of the good news on NVIDIA. I think it's going to be a buy the rumor, sell the event type situation, meaning that I think this pattern that we have, maybe we get some type of bounce back up, revisit the highs, but ultimately with the seasonality in the marketplace, the traditional pivots in the marketplace, I think it's breaking down, right? The question is, how good of an entry can you get? Was this the best entry, 5067, or does it try to break out and go to 5100 or slightly higher? That's the question to me, but I don't expect NVIDIA to drive the markets that much higher. I think it's a trading opportunity in the marketplace. Let's bounce over. There's a 5 hour. Let's bounce over to the NASDAQ. NQ, guys. This is the E-mini. So we're looking at the NASDAQ again, looking at the daily, guys. Let's just look at a couple of things. Look at your divergence you have here on the daily. There's your money flow. Here's your price action. Price action up, money flow down. What about your momentum? Momentum down, price action up. You see this? This is just divergence. Doesn't mean you can't go higher. It's just one of those calling signs of the market to get an idea of what's happening in the marketplace. When we look at the NASDAQ here, you can see you're getting topping action. What's topping action mean? Volatility, guys. You get new highs, new lows. You can see it happening in the range. Tuesday, we had the big sell-off. And keep in mind how fast these markets can fall. And Tuesday's sell-off in the S&P, just in 2 hours, you wiped out 5 days of gains. And the Dow, you wiped out almost 2 weeks of gains in a single afternoon. That's the volatility in the marketplace. So we have a topping pattern that's forming, but just like the S&P, you could be forming a smaller W here to come back up and revisit the highs, right? All depends on these earnings. So let's look at this and see what these projections could be. Well, we have 18,279 and 18,479. So basically 18,250 and then 18,5 would be your two levels. NVIDIA rocks it. Market piles in more money. People are chasing performance. You do something like this. You top out at one of these two levels. In my opinion, trading opportunity, everything I say is my own opinion, my own views on the marketplace, guys. This is entertainment, education only. Do your own due diligence. But just as likely and just as easily, if NVIDIA disappoints at some level, even if they meet numbers, but it's not good enough, look for the revisit to 17.8 to 18.1, and you get that three-wave pattern like this, and you start breaking down in the marketplace just in time with our traditional seasonal pivots. You're noticing a pattern of the things that I'm talking about here. If this is your current local high, then what you're looking for is the NASDAQ to start breaking down below 17.5. You start breaking down below 17.5, then you come to this next fractal support at 17,253, and by that time, we'll have another video out. But these are your first steps you're going to be coming down to here on the NASDAQ. Let's move forward. The Dow, same thing, guys. Look at this momentum divergence you're getting on the Dow. Daily time frame. Look at this. Look how much smaller and lower this is. Big wave up, gave you the big momentum. This last leg, and you can see that big sell-off candle you had here, right? This last leg, you have money flow divergence, momentum divergence. The Dow also putting in what looks to be a topping pattern. Doesn't mean it can't squirt out, hit a slightly higher target, and then start breaking down. But again, this is all going to be so much of this market, guys. You have to understand a combination of TA, understanding human psychology, the sheeple in the marketplace. You have to understand that, in my opinion, to really be an effective trader. That's the whole fear and greed sentiment indicator as well. It's human psychology. If NVIDIA rocks it, look for these markets to all test their highs and try to push higher. Can they do it? That's the question, but look for them to do it. NVIDIA doesn't rock it, they're going to start selling off. It's really that simple, okay? So we look at the Dow. Let's open this up. Let's look at the Dow here. Put a fib on this from your fractal high down to that fractal low. Look at all these days you wiped out of gains just in that one-day drop. We're looking at the Dow possibly coming back up to 38.8, 39K. If it, for whatever reason, it gets above that, you're looking at 39,250 and then 39,600 at the 1618, okay? Those are your next likely scenarios if NVIDIA has a big upside. Lots of people are excited about it. Look for that move. If not, it's going to start breaking down and falling to the downside. Now let's look at NVIDIA. Looking at a 3-week chart here, guys. Look at this candle. You got a doji forming right now. Look at this stock. This is absolutely crazy. This is just like .com, by the way. For those of you that are not old enough or were not involved in the markets, back when I was trading in .com, Cisco was the largest company in the world briefly. It was featured on Time magazine. You cannot have the internet without Cisco. Cisco was a hardware manufacturer, made switches, made all types of different things, became the largest company in the world because the internet is not a bubble. The same thing they're saying about AI now. AI is not a bubble. The internet was not a bubble. And the internet certainly became, I guess, it changed the whole world. It doesn't mean the company's valuation is accurate for what you're doing, right? So hardware manufacturers, by the way, typically tend not to be the ones that profit. Who made more money? Cisco, Google, Amazon, Apple, over time, of course. Who profited more from the internet? Well, the answer is Cisco has still not taken out its all-time high from .com. NVIDIA is a hardware manufacturer that's going to get a lot more people competing against them, making their own chips as well. So this is a massive run up, a massive bubble that's forming. Doesn't mean it can't go higher. So we look at this on a 3-week chart, guys. We can pull this fib from November 2021, their November high down to that market low. We can see the 1618. Remember, we talked about this 493. Look at this resistance. This was big resistance. You fell all the way down below $400 in this range once you hit it. And you can see we don't have anything above it. We need to expand, harmonic expansion to 618. Look what that puts you at, 732. NVIDIA got above 732, but you can see currently it is still closed below 732. So you are at a key turning point here in this stock. If they disappoint, an 11% move, guys, is priced into the market. Try to get this exactly where you're priced at now. 11% move takes you down to basically 642, okay? 642 on the downside, or you could be looking at 806 on the upside. So basically an 8 handle or a 6 handle and a 1.7, $1.8 trillion company. Massive. And if this thing pulls down, NASDAQ shedding points, S&P shedding points, you're going to see volatility in crypto either right away or start to develop as well. This is why we're watching this, but you're still at that key level, 732. Last close was 726. Let's go ahead and move forward. Looking at the Russell, guys, the Russell doing what it always does, which is trade in a range, and you tried to break out of the range, you failed. Lots of volatility. The Russell is heavily sensitive to U.S. economic conditions because it's small caps, right? So small caps are always going to be more sensitive. This is how you know the bull market that you're in has no legs. The leaders that traditionally lead in bull markets. When the bull markets start, by the way, guys, a lot of people don't know this answer. Bull markets start when you have high unemployment, when after you've had a market sell-off, because you get growth and expansion. People become employed, people start spending money, and you see it in the stocks. The Russell, Bitcoin, NASDAQ growth led the market up in 2021 after the plague recovery. They all topped. The Russell never recovered. Bitcoin is still down below its all-time highs as well, but you're going to see this breakout when everything else does this big rebound. You could potentially break back out to the upside, but it's a limit. It's capped before all the selling starts in the summer with the realization of the market cycle, with the realization of the recession coming in, okay? Bull markets do not start with full employment. Bull markets do not start with the Russell trading in a bear market, right? Everything else is making new all-time highs. The Russell is still in a bear market. The narrative they want you to believe on TV is the breadth is going to expand. It's going to expand. But if you look back at past market cycles, they all play out the same way. Late cycle, the breadth narrows and fewer stocks hold up the indices until eventually they capitulate and everything comes down. So that's the Russell, guys. Upside is limited. Your current high here is 2097. When the Russell does come back down, I'm expecting it to come down to around 1813, completing this 15% drop, by the way, which it did last February, corrected into March, right? All the way out into March 22nd, 15.5% drop. Russell's trading right back up in this range right now. It's 2028. 2097 was your resistance. So potential trading opportunities here on the Russell as well. Let's go ahead and move forward. Bitcoin. Let's talk about what we know and what we don't know when it comes to Bitcoin, okay? Let's look at a couple of things that we know. We know Bitcoin made its low here back in November 2022, right? There's your low. We had this nice wave pattern up, 100% move up to form the peak of our diamond pattern, right? We talked about this diamond pattern. This is a 3-day chart. For weeks, we talked about this until finally on October 23rd, gave you the trade for it, the fractal breakout, 55% gain up to the next level here in Bitcoin. So we know a couple of things about Bitcoin. We know that we had this level. We know this level was validated here by Fibonacci. We knew the market would potentially pause here, 1618, 31.2. You see your highs here in the 31.2 range. We know it's a 105% move. And now we've had this next move, the fractal breakout here from the diamond pattern, which initially gave us our high, a 102% move. Again, market symmetry in the wave movements up. Now let's remove this because now we have our third accumulation zone and a breakout from that accumulation zone. So let's look and see what that tells us. We look at this accumulation zone, we pull down this fib. We did this last video as well. 1272, guys. The last video I told you we could see ourselves come up to the 51.8 range. We're at 51.950 right now here on the BingX chart. We're right here at the 1272. NVIDIA has strong earnings, or just because it's Bitcoin and it likes to do these parabolic moves, you could see this hit up here at 55K. 55,443, right? You could see that move. If market gets any more FOMO, you could base here, hit your head up here, and start building some type of top. I do believe Bitcoin will retrace with these markets. We're going to go over these targets, but this is where you're at now. You're stuck right at that 1272, 51.8. You're at 51,944. You're getting some volatility here on the 3-day chart. Your next level up is 55,443, okay? If you can get up to that level. Let's look at some of our indicators here. MFI tells you could push up here on the 3-day chart. Momentum picking up as well. Let's start breaking this down into more recent price action. Let's look at the daily. Way overbought still. Doesn't matter. You can still move up, as you guys know. Momentum is good on the daily. So again, you need to tie this to the other markets, guys, and understand what's happening in the marketplace. Let's look at our overhead resistance here because I want to pull down that fib from the all-time high to see if we have any Fibonacci confluence. If we pull down the fib from the all-time high down to our market low, you got above the 618, which is 48,562. This gave us an awesome trade, by the way, which we talked about on YouTube, traded into Discord, hitting the 618, 21% drop. Now you got your rocket ship up. Notice you're floating between 57, which is a 786, 57.5, and 48.5. So let's look at this. Let's edit the fib. We need to add the harmonic slice. That's the 707 fib. Let's add this fib and see what this does to our charts. That's 53,326. You start looking at candles over to your left. Look at these ranges. These candles that were support on the way down become resistance as well. You're in this range right here. So your immediate overhead resistance before you could get to 55 is at 53,326. So you want to watch the area where you're at in Bitcoin right now, right? You need to watch this area and see how this develops. Are we going to get that last push up to the 55K range, or are we going to start capitulating? And you know what? That answer may be really quick, guys, not to be a broken record, but if NVIDIA disappoints and the market starts dumping after hours, remember, crypto trades 24/7. You could see an immediate reaction in crypto as well. It all depends. I don't know what their earnings are going to be. Nobody does. It's all speculation, but just watch these ranges. You want to hold 48K and you want to try to push up to 53, then to 55K. And then I think you're putting in a probability for a top at that range. Now let's talk about these retracements, where they could go on Bitcoin. We covered this last time. We're going to look at this zoomed out here on the 3-day chart, okay? So we look at this on a 3-day chart. We can pull here from our local low, 38.5, to our current high. Could it go higher? It'll change the projection some, but just look at it. So guys, key pivot point here obviously is the top of the diamond, right? That's 31,840. So this is, you want to try to hold this range. This took weeks. Actually, let's see how long this took to accumulate here. March 23, all the way out to October. This took months. This is months of candles stacking side by side. So this is a key pivot point here in the market. Just this fib projection here has you down 34.6. The 1618 at 29,687 puts you right back in the heart of this, of the diamond pattern. So these are realistic. I know some people that watch on the comments, they think this is totally unrealistic, but you know, 105% wave moves up. That to some people seems very unrealistic, but that's exactly what we did. So I would gauge this by what Bitcoin traditionally does. If the S&P does pull down to 4,600, I'm looking at these two targets, guys. I'm looking at 34.6 and I'm looking at 29,687, right in this range, low 30s to mid 30s, because it makes sense with the TA, it makes sense where your support is, and it makes sense with the size of the decline we're talking about in the traditional markets is trillions and trillions of dollars. You need to understand that number. It's a lot of money. But again, the upside, guys, the upside is why a lot of people are excited. So if you look at the upside, and again, if this is the local high, we don't know if it is, but if this is your local high, and let's just pull it down to that 31K level, again, this is a projection of Bitcoin going 58.6 at the 1272. With this new price action, guys, it gives you a Bitcoin projection challenging your all-time high. 65.9 could be that next projection up. And that's, keep in mind, this is just Fibonacci, but that's the projection of it coming down to 31K. Your next move up would once again be a greater than a doubling, another 100+% move upwards. So if that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what does. I guess people just don't want to see it go from 52, 55K down to the 30s. But guys, this is Bitcoin. Again, this is not a place for snowflakes. This is a place to make a lot of money, potentially life-changing money. So we want to watch and see how this develops. Let's zoom in on Bitcoin real quick and look at a closer chart. Let's look at an 8-hour time frame and see what we have going on as far as patterns. And pattern-wise, guys, I mean, right now you're throwing a double top. Doesn't have to be a double top. If you get a catalyst, then you can easily get this to be a W with more upside, just like I showed you on the indices, okay? That upside could look something like this. This could be your next move up. And look at these numbers, 54,223, 56,428. The median difference between there, 55K. So if the markets do push up with FOMO, again, watch your 53.5 level and then watch your 54.55 level. And that would be the area, that final topping move, I believe, for the marketplace, which should coincide with Confluence final topping area for Bitcoin as well. Okay, let's go ahead and look at this on Solana. So what are we talking about in Solana? For a couple of things here. I mean, a lot of people look at this and say, man, that's a giant cup, right? Cup, and here's your handle forming. So the way I'm looking at this, guys, again, confluence with the other markets, confluence with Bitcoin. This is a beautiful double top pattern right here that you're forming, right? So if the markets do this retracement, if Bitcoin does this retracement, then I'm looking at trading Solana, because when you look at Solana here, if we pull from this local high, just a couple different ways we can do this, April 1st, 2022, down to your market low, this has been on a tear, right? This one all the way down, what is that, $5? You're right at the 786 at 114. That's where you're finding resistance from this local high, right? 114. You have a beautiful three-wave double top pattern that formed right here. This is a beautiful, massive, very clean three-wave pattern. You can look at this a couple different ways. You can just pull a fib from your local high here down, and you can see the 786 is at 116 as well. This is a 3-day chart. So your 786 is at 116. So right in this range, 116, 118, I want to see what the markets do, but if they start selling off, I'm going to look at trading Solana myself up here in this 116, 118 range. I would like to see it die here before the 127. And where would be a good place for me to get out? Well, if the markets start selling off, but Solana starts doing this and wants to print a giant W pattern, I'm going to be looking at getting out above 130 probably, right, on this trade. But again, this is a series of confluences for me. Are the markets topping? If so, are they starting to show signs of selling? Is Bitcoin topping? If so, is Bitcoin starting to show signs of selling? If all those answers are yes, then I'm looking at trading alts. Why? Alts get much bigger moves, bigger returns on your money. And this is a very clean pattern as it's presenting itself. If Bitcoin wants to get a little bit more bullish, then watch these levels. The key resistance level up here is 127, because that's where you faded from before, guys. And when you fell from 127, you fell to $78. Understand, especially with leverage, how much of a move this is when you go from 127 to 78. That was almost a 40% move. We're talking about the S&P correcting 8 to 10%. This is a 40% move just in one single asset. This is why crypto can help you find financial freedom. This is how I was able to retire, was when I added trading Bitcoin and altcoins to my repertoire. So watch Solana. This is going to be a fun one. I'll keep this on the charts for you guys to keep you updated. Watch these levels we just went over. Let's look at Ethereum. See Ethereum tracking very closely to the Bitcoin pattern. I like the setup better on Solana, guys. Why? Because we have this, right? We have this clear pattern developing in Solana for a double top. I don't have that on Ethereum. You just have up candles. So let's look at a couple different things here on Ethereum. Ethereum 3-day chart. Look at the bearish momentum here, or the bearish momentum, the bearish money flow. You have bearishness here, and you have price going up. Momentum, you have it rolling over, looking like it's going to make a lower high as price is going up. So let's look at Ethereum a couple different ways. Let's pull this from that same high here, that November or April high, 2022, down to this low. And you can see Ethereum here on the 3-day chart, 3,000 key psychological level, as well as it's the 786 on the fib to this cluster of candles from the high. Okay. So you're at 29.24. I would watch 3,000. And personally, I want to see this make some type of large shape, right? And you can see this in smaller time frames. What I like about Solana is it's printing that 3-wave top on a large time frame, a 3-day time frame. But you could see this in smaller time frames, this type of pattern, right? And this is an entry opportunity after you start making that 3-wave top in confluence with market conditions. Let's bounce this over to the 1-day, see if we have anything. You got a pullback and price pushing up. I'd watch 3,000, see what happens here with Ethereum, see what happens with Bitcoin. And let's even go down to 8-hour. Still nothing, guys. 8-hour, I want to see this hit resistance and stop. It needs to hit resistance, make a pattern, give us a trade. Let's finish it off here with some global equities. The DAX. DAX is back at 17,136. DAX is open. European markets open, guys. This had a really great sell-off from our 17K plus range as well, dropping all the way down to 16.8 and then pump back up with the U.S. markets, right? So when we look at the DAX, guys, on the daily time frame, again, we're just looking at this from the perspective of Germany's in a recession. Understand, this is a perfect example. This was a new all-time high, okay? Markets are not the economy. Markets are not the economy. They are detached in the sense of they don't reflect economic conditions. The economy is actual data, is something that you can measure. It's something that you can statistically see, but markets have so much human sentiment and psychology, FOMO, fear, all types of different indications. And when markets are saying, oh, great, now we can cut rates soon, you get money piling in, retail investors piling in. But eventually, just like you'll see in a sell-off, a massive sell-off, eventually the pendulum switches and swings the other way. So you're looking at this here on the DAX. And again, just from this fractal high right here down to this low. You got above the 1 fib. You can see you're throwing up some doji candles here. This is going to follow heavily the US markets. So nothing's really changed. You're stuck in this range. You're getting volatility, again, signs of a top. You're getting up thrust here. You're getting volatile signs here of the market ranging between 17.2 all the way down to 16.8. And you're going up and down, up and down. Here on the daily time frame, you've only had these 2 candles. But at some level, I expect this retracement in kind with the US markets, guys. So really it's a patience thing, but you could be printing it right now. It could be just a move like that and you start breaking down. You have multiple patterns here on the DAX. You have them on the European indices. Key support levels, by the way, just from this local high, if that local high holds, you retrace down to 17.1 on this move right here, bounced off to 382. So once you start breaking down, once you break down below 16,846, further downside, have to get past this cluster of candles, 16.5. And I would have the DAX going below 16K in the retracement, this traditional seasonal retracement with the US markets. So looking for the DAX then at like 15.5, 15.7, somewhere in that range, giving you the same type of retracement, 8 to 10%. Looking at Euro Stocks 50, guys, same thing here. Euro Stocks 50, I want to see this get to 48.29. Let me show you this once again. We got above, come on, mouse. We got above our current target. Let me pull this down. So 1618, 48.29. You're almost there. You're at 47.76. Let's see if we can get the 48.29, 1618, start building some type of shape and start descending down with the other markets. So that's what I'm looking at on Euro Stocks 50. Guys, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I think this went a little bit long. I answer your comments as always. I hope to see you guys in our trading Discord. Message Lee in Telegram if you have any questions. And the next transmission will be on Thursday as per usual. Take care, everybody.